That night, something felt different. I lay quietly in the darkness of my room, the soft hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. The entire room was wrapped in stillness, yet my eyes refused to close. It surprised me because I was always a heavy sleeper, the kind of sleep where not even thunderstorms could wake me. I used to wonder how I managed to sleep so soundly, uninterrupted from night to morning. But tonight, sleep eluded me. Dressed lightly due to the summer heat, I lay under the sheets, staring into the blackness. My body was tired, but my mind was restless. I kept drifting into shallow, broken sleep, waking again and again without understanding why. And then it happened. One moment, I was half asleep. The next, I felt it, an eerie presence. Something wasn't right. I opened my eyes. My entire body froze. There was someone in the room. A shadow, tall, silent, loomed directly over me. In the dim, almost non-existent light, I couldn't see his face, but the weight of his presence pressed against my chest. My breath caught in my throat as panic surged through my veins. I reached for my voice, to scream, to push, to fight, but in that instant, I felt it. The clothes I had worn to bed, they were gone. I didn't know how, I didn't know when. My body was bare beneath the sheet, and my mind screamed for answers. Who was this? How did he get in? And then it hit me like a wave of ice. My brother-in-law. He was the only other person in the house. Everyone else was gone, just him and me. The realization made the ground vanish beneath me. My entire body went cold with horror. Before I could cry out, his hand clamped down over my mouth, silencing me completely. I struggled, but it was useless. He was strong, overpowering. The next few moments blurred into terror. I was helpless, my voice smothered, my body paralyzed by fear. I never saw his face. The room was too dark, but in my heart I believed I knew who it was. And the thought shattered me. When I finally regained control of my thoughts, when my body stopped trembling, one truth haunted me. I wasn't alone in that room. And something terrible had just happened, something that words could never fully describe. And worse, this was only the beginning. The next morning, my body felt heavy, my mind foggy with unanswered questions and buried panic. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Something had been stolen from me in the dark, and I didn't know how to confront it. I didn't scream, I didn't tell anyone, I just pretended, like everything was normal. But inside, I was unraveling. As I sat in the living room trying to gather myself, loud voices broke through the silence. My brother-in-law and his wife, Nina, were fighting again. Their room echoed with anger, accusations, and the familiar bitterness of a marriage falling apart. These arguments weren't new. I had heard them before. But today, each scream cut through me with new sharpness. I had been the one who arranged their marriage. Nina was a distant relative from my side of the family. She was gentle, polite, and soft-spoken. My brother-in-law had seemed like the perfect match, strong, respectful, and composed. At least, that's what I believed. But it hadn't taken long for the cracks to show. The fight started soon after the wedding, first subtle, then explosive. I chose to remain silent, believing all couples had rough patches in the beginning. I didn't want to interfere. I thought they would work it out. But today's fight seemed worse. Their voices rose so high I feared they might hurt each other. Reluctantly, I walked toward their room and knocked before entering. They both fell silent the moment I stepped in. My brother-in-law looked angry, flushed with frustration. "You've made a terrible match for me," he snapped. "She doesn't understand how to be a wife. She doesn't fulfill her responsibilities. She's only making my life harder." Nina turned to me with red eyes, trembling with pain. "I trusted you," she said quietly. "You gave me a husband who treats me like I'm not even human. He doesn't see me as a partner. He sees me as an object, as something to use." I stood there, stunned. Her words were harsh, and I didn't know how to respond. My brother-in-law scowled. "She's the one who's cold. She doesn't care how I feel. I've done everything I could for her." Their words twisted in my head like tangled vines. For the first time, I realized that what was happening behind their closed door might be darker than I'd allowed myself to admit. I tried to calm them down, urging them to talk with love to avoid humiliating themselves in front of neighbors. They fell quiet, but something told me this silence was temporary. I didn't know it yet, but that argument had peeled back a layer, and beneath it, something terrifying was waiting to surface. I thought the silence would last. I hoped it would. But the very next morning, Naina emerged from her room with a look on her face that made my stomach twist. There was no shouting, no loud accusations, just silence and pain. The way she walked, the way she avoided eye contact, it all felt wrong. I tried to act normal, but she stood in front of me, unmoving. "Have you looked at me properly these past 2 months?" she asked. I was caught off guard. Her voice was calm, almost eerie in its stillness. "What do you mean?" I asked, scanning her face. She slowly pulled down the shoulder of her camise, revealing a deep red bruise, long and raw across her skin. My breath caught. I didn't know what to say. Shame wrapped itself around me. I looked away. "I stayed silent yesterday because you told me to," she continued. "You said this was a husband-wife matter, that it would settle over time. But tell me, is this what marriage is supposed to look like? Am I supposed to wake up every morning aching from his hands?" I was speechless. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her voice didn't tremble. It was steady, almost scolding. "You see him as a kind, respectful man. You think he's decent. But you don't know him. He's not the man you believe he is. He's not human when night falls." Her words hit me hard, but strangely, I still couldn't fully believe her. In my heart, I kept making excuses. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe she wasn't trying hard enough to understand him. Maybe he just had a temper. I had seen couples fight before. This couldn't be that different. I reached out to her, trying to soften my tone. "It's a new marriage, Naina. He's just emotional right now. Things will calm down with time. When I was newly married, my husband was the same, very intense. But it settled." She looked at me like I was speaking another language. "You have no idea what I'm going through," she whispered. "You'll never understand until you've lived through a night with a man who sees you as nothing more than an outlet." I couldn't respond, and so I let her walk away. I told myself she was just overwhelmed, that she would forgive him, but deep down, something in me knew better. Something in me felt the weight of her bruises and of my silence. What I didn't realize was that the next time she spoke, it wouldn't be a complaint, it would be a decision. It happened 2 days later. I was in the kitchen preparing lunch when the shouting began again, louder, harsher than ever before. Pots clanged in the distance, doors slammed, and Naina's voice pierced through the walls like glass shattering. My heart sank. Not again, I thought. Not this soon. Neighbors could hear them now. Their angry voices echoed down the hallway and into the open courtyard. I dropped the ladle in my hand and rushed to their room, fear tightening in my chest. As I opened the door, I saw Naina crying, standing near the bed with a packed bag in her hand. My brother-in-law stood on the other side, red-faced and breathing heavily. "For heaven's sake, control yourselves," I shouted, stepping between them. "Do you have no shame? The entire neighborhood can hear you." He turned to me, his jaw clenched. "Then talk to your beloved cousin," he snapped. "She's impossible. If she can't behave like a proper wife, she's free to go." Naina's eyes met mine. They weren't tearful anymore. They were determined. "That's exactly what I'm doing," she said, her voice cold. "I'm leaving. I can't survive another day in this house with a man who doesn't even treat me like a human being." I moved toward her, trying to reason. "Naina, please, think this through. Where will you go?" "To people who actually care about me," she replied, lifting her bag. "Not someone who uses me like a punching bag, or worse." Then she paused, looked directly at me. Her eyes burned into mine. "You think he's a good man," she said slowly. "But you don't know what he becomes after dark. Try spending one night with him. Just one. Then tell me what kind of man he is." The words hit me like a slap. I stood frozen, embarrassed, humiliated. Did she really say that to me? She stormed out of the house. I followed her as far as the gate, pleading, but she didn't look back. Her taxi pulled away, leaving dust and silence behind. I turned to my brother-in-law, stunned and shaken. He shrugged casually. "You heard her. She's not worth it. You saw how she spoke to you. She never respected this house." And just like that, he walked away, without guilt, without remorse. I was left alone in the hallway, surrounded by silence and judgment. I felt the weight of both families crashing down on my shoulders, my own relatives from Naina's side and my husband's family from the in-laws. But something deeper had begun to fester, because now, once again, I was alone in this house with him, just like before. And for the first time since Naina left, I felt fear stronger than sympathy. The house felt quieter than ever that night. Too quiet. Naina was gone. Her room was empty, her scent still lingering faintly in the pillows and curtains. The echoes of her footsteps had been replaced by a deep, unsettling silence. A silence that pressed against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. I tried to go about my daily routine as if nothing had changed. Cleaning, cooking, organizing shelves that didn't need organizing. But I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said before she left. Try spending one night with him. Those words stayed with me, not because of their crudeness, but because of the certainty with which she spoke them. Like she knew something I refused to see. Like she had already lived a horror I didn't yet understand. But I kept brushing it off. I kept telling myself she was exaggerating, emotional, angry. My brother-in-law had always been kind to me. He helped around the house. He brought me fruit and dry fruits when I was sick. And lately, ever since Naina had left, he'd started bringing me a glass of milk every night before bed, saying I was overworking myself and I needed to stay strong. I believed him, and so I drank it every night, and every night I fell asleep the moment my head touched the pillow, a sleep so deep it was frightening, so unlike the light, dreamy sleep I used to have. I told myself it was just exhaustion. All the housework, all the emotional pressure, all the stress. It made sense, didn't it? But then strange things started happening. I began waking up feeling different. My clothes would be wrinkled in odd places. The bedsheet would be tangled and half on the floor. The blanket would be kicked far from the bed. My hair, always tied in a braid before sleep, would be loose and disheveled. And the most terrifying part? I never remembered a thing. At first, I ignored it. I thought I was just restless, that my body was reacting to stress, but deep down, fear was growing like a quiet fire. I began dreading sleep. I began questioning the milk. I began wondering if I was truly alone at night. Then one evening, while on the phone with my husband, I got distracted. I forgot to drink the milk. It sat there untouched on the table as I chatted for nearly an hour. When I finally lay down, I didn't feel sleepy, not right away. And that was the night I woke up in the dark, paralyzed with fear, to find someone sitting at the edge of my bed, his hand reaching for my buttons. And this time, I wasn't asleep. My eyes snapped open, heart thundering in my chest. It was pitch dark, no light, no movement. Just a strange weight in the air, but I could feel it. Someone was there. He was sitting on the edge of my bed. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his breath, warm and slow. My shirt was half unbuttoned. His fingers hovered near my chest, and in that moment I realized this wasn't a dream, this wasn't sleep. This was real. I tried to scream. But before the sound could escape, his hand flew to my mouth and pressed hard. I struggled beneath him, kicking, pushing, clawing at the air, but he was strong, inhumanly strong. His grip was firm, his presence monstrous. I wasn't just trapped. I was being hunted. He didn't say a word, just breathed heavily as he tied my wrists with what felt like a scarf or a dupatta. Then, one by one, he bound my ankles too. I was fully conscious, my heart pleading for mercy, my mind screaming inside a body that couldn't move. And then, just as Naina had once said, I saw the truth. He wasn't a man at night. He was a beast. He violated me, silently, ruthlessly. There are no words for what he did. No vocabulary broad enough to contain the terror, the shame, the helplessness. I cried, not from pain, but from disbelief. How could this happen in my own home? How could someone so close, so trusted, turn into something so cruel? Eventually, I passed out, not from sleep, but from shock. When morning light streamed through the window, I was alone again. My hands were free, my legs untied. The room was still, as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. I lay there for what felt like hours, unable to move, tears soaking into the pillow beneath me. My mind reeled from the realization. Someone had drugged me, entered my room night after night, and stolen something I could never get back. And the milk he brought every night. That had to be it. I dragged myself to the door only to find it locked from the outside. I was a prisoner in my own bedroom. Hours passed. The sun was now high in the sky, my throat was dry, my limbs weak, and just when I thought I'd collapse again, I heard it, the sound of keys turning. The door creaked open, and standing there was my husband. My world swayed. I ran to him, collapsed into his arms, and sobbed uncontrollably. "Someone came into my room," I whispered. "Someone hurt me." And then I said the only name my mind could hold on to: your brother. For a few moments, my husband didn't say anything. He just stood there, arms still loosely around me, his expression unreadable. I had imagined so many reactions: anger, disbelief, fury, a vow for justice. But the silence that followed my trembling words was more terrifying than any outburst. I pulled back slightly, wiping my tears, trying to steady my voice. "It was your brother," I repeated, quieter this time. "He came into my room last night. He tied me up. I couldn't scream. I tried." His eyes finally met mine, and what he said next shattered me more than the night itself. "If that's true," he said flatly, then I can no longer keep you as my wife." I froze. "What?" I whispered. "I can't live with someone who has been touched by another man, even if it was my brother." I took a step back, heart pounding. "You think this was my fault?" He looked away. I didn't say that. But it happened. And now I can't. I just can't." Tears streamed down my face. "Your brother, your own brother, violated me. I was unconscious, drugged, and you're punishing me for it?" He didn't respond. Instead, he opened his wallet, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and held it out. My eyes blurred as I looked down. It was a divorce notice. My knees gave out. I fell to the floor, sobbing. Not just because I had been assaulted, not just because I had lost something sacred, but because the man I had married, the one who was supposed to protect me, was now walking away without hesitation. He stood over me, cold and distant. "Pack your things. I'll drop you at your parents' house before sunset." And then he left. I don't remember how I stood up or how I walked to my room. My hands moved on their own as I pulled clothes into a bag, numb and lifeless. The day passed in silence. He returned in the evening, dropped me at my parents' doorstep, and drove away like I was never part of his life. My family, horrified by my state, demanded answers. I told them everything, every word, every bruise, every shadow. That night, as I lay in my childhood room surrounded by people who loved me but couldn't undo what had been done, one thought kept repeating in my mind. It wasn't just one man who destroyed me. It was both of them. One violated my body, the other my soul. The next morning, I awoke in my parents' home to a sea of worried faces. My mother's eyes were swollen from crying. My father, silent and heavy with shame, sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. My sisters hovered nearby, trying to comfort me, but what comfort could there be? I had been thrown out of my marriage, disgraced and discarded like something unclean. "I want answers," my mother said. "What exactly happened in that house?" And so I told them everything. The late-night silence, the milk, the shadows, the ropes, the fear. I told them how I had blamed my brother-in-law, how I had cried for help, how my own husband had chosen to abandon me rather than stand by me. My mother's face darkened with confusion and something deeper, a suspicion. She called Naina. When Naina arrived, she looked startled to see me back home. But as soon as she sat down, my mother turned to her with urgency. "Tell me the truth. What exactly happened between you and your husband? Why did you leave?" Naina exhaled slowly, her gaze flickering toward me. "I left because he never loved me," she said. "He never touched me, not once. We were married, but he treated me like a stranger. There was no affection, no warmth, no closeness. I cried every night, begging for even a glance, but he never saw me." Her words confused me. "But you said he was cruel. You showed me bruises." "I lied," she admitted softly. "I was desperate to make someone listen. I didn't know how to explain what I was going through. It wasn't physical abuse, it was emptiness. He had no interest in me, not even as a person. I thought something was wrong with me." I felt the room shift. The ground beneath me seemed to sway. Naina continued, "I told you that your brother-in-law was not human at night, But not because he attacked me, because he became completely disconnected, cold, dead inside. That's what I meant. Her voice broke as she looked at me with teary eyes. I didn't mean to mislead you. I just wanted someone to believe that I was hurting. I sat frozen. If her husband, the man I thought had assaulted me, wasn't even interested in touching his own wife, then who had entered my room? Who had drugged me? Who had taken everything from me in the dark? And then, like a flash of lightning tearing across a stormy sky, the realization hit. What if it wasn't him? What if the man I had accused was innocent? The pieces began shifting in my mind. Doubt turned into fear. Fear turned into dread. Had I misunderstood everything? Had I handed my life's truth to the wrong man? And if I had, who was the real monster? The confusion clawed at me like a beast. Nina's confession had shattered everything I thought I knew. If her husband had never touched her, if he had been cold and distant, then the man I believed had violated me might have been innocent all along. But if it wasn't him, then who was it? I sat in my room, silent and still, as if even breathing too loudly might break the fragile walls of sanity closing in around me. I thought about the nights I had been drugged, the footsteps in the dark, the silence, the forced touch. And I remembered something. The milk. My brother-in-law had started bringing it to me only after Nana had left. He said he cared about my health, that I looked tired. I trusted him. But now I wondered, was he acting on someone else's orders? I needed to know. And so the next morning, I asked to see him. He came, awkward and hesitant, like someone walking toward a courtroom. He looked thinner, quieter. His face had none of the anger or dominance I had imagined when I'd screamed his name. I looked him straight in the eyes. "Tell me the truth," I said. "Did you do it that night? Was it you in my room?" His eyes widened. He looked at me for a long time and then shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "I swear on everything I hold sacred, I never entered your room without knocking. I never touched you. Never." I stared at him, searching for lies. But all I saw was pain, real, raw pain. "I thought you hated me," I whispered. "I thought you hurt me." He lowered his head. "I never hated you," he said. I loved you. I still do." I felt like the ground had split beneath me. He took a shaky breath and continued. "It wasn't me. It was my brother. Your husband." I froze. He looked up at me again, tears welling in his eyes. "He asked me to put sleeping pills in your milk. Said you weren't sleeping. Said you were depressed." I believed him. I didn't know what he was planning. My heart pounded louder than I thought it could. "He came back secretly?" He nodded. "He never left the city. He'd come at night after I fell asleep. He used me to get to you. And when it was done, he blamed me, knowing you'd believe it." Tears fell down my cheeks. "He destroyed my life. And yours." He said nothing. There was no need. The real monster had been sleeping in my bed, wearing the face of a husband. And he left quietly, taking my trust, my dignity, and my voice with him. But the truth had finally found a way through the darkness, and now I had to decide what came next. The truth had broken something inside me, but it had also set something free. All this time, I had believed I was living among protectors. I thought my husband was distant because of work, and that my brother-in-law might be dangerous because of the lies Nana whispered in pain. But in reality, I had been betrayed by the one man I had vowed my life to, and I had misunderstood the one who had silently loved me all along. The days that followed were quiet but not peaceful. My family was devastated. They had seen me married with joy, and now they watched me return as a woman discarded. My brother-in-law, now proven innocent, stood by in silence, never once blaming me for what I had assumed about him. His dignity made my shame even heavier. Then came the proposal. My parents hesitated at first, uncertain whether it was right to let me marry the man I had once accused. But when he came to speak with my father, his words were soft, honest, and full of love. He said he didn't want to live the rest of his life under the shadow of someone else's sins. He wanted to give me what I deserved: respect, trust, and peace. I don't want her to carry the burden of that man's cruelty forever, he said. Let me help her heal. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see my brother-in-law. I saw a man who had suffered in silence, who had been denied love, who had watched the woman he loved fall apart because of his brother's twisted games. I said yes. Our marriage was quiet. No grand events, no loud announcements, just two people starting over, building something new from the wreckage of what had been destroyed. On our wedding night, he told me everything. My ex-husband had never loved me. He had affairs, hidden plans, and a selfish desire to break free without facing blame. He wanted out, but instead of choosing honesty, he chose cruelty. He manipulated everyone, including his own brother. He drugged me, abused me, and walked away without looking back. He told me before he left, my new husband said, that I could marry you if I still wanted, as if you were something to be handed over. I cried that night, not because of the past, but because someone finally stood beside me without expecting me to be anything but myself. Life moved on. Nina eventually remarried, a good man, one who gave her what she had always prayed for. And I learned that fate is not always cruel. Sometimes, after pain, it offers mercy. I had lost my voice, my dignity, and my trust. But in the arms of the man I had once doubted, I found love. Real love. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself in the dark.